You have a cancer scan coming up next week, and suddenly you're short of breath. Your heart is just pounding out of your chest, and your thoughts are racing, and you have waves of panic coming over you. This is anxiety. You can't control when and how and where you're getting your cancer scans. It's not really up to you. But the good news is you can learn to control your anxiety, and that's what we're going to help you with today. Hi, welcome to Walking on the Edge, Living with Cancer. My name is Lori, along with my sister Sherry, who will chime in a minute. We're here to help you learn to live with cancer. I am a personal trainer and nationally certified health coach, and my sister Sherry has been living with stage 4 lung cancer for 6 years. We have a video on her journey. I'll link it above if you want to it's a short video if you just want to understand her story a little bit. So, Sherry, you get scans every 3 or 4 months, right?
Yeah, I have scans of my brain every 4 months, and then my oncologist also moved my body scans to every 4 months. Lung cancer is just known to go to the brain, so they monitor the brain closely to make sure it doesn't spread there.
I know from just being with Sherry through her whole cancer journey that the first few scans were really rough. The first year is just horrible. Sherry herself would think that, pretty much anything that was happening to her body meant her cancer was progressing. The next scan was going to be awful. And, thankfully, really none of that has come to fruition in the last 6 years, but we don't know, what's ahead. So, Sherry, just tell us, what were you going through, especially the first few times, and were you on any, medications, or how were you handling that, especially in the beginning?
So when you're first diagnosed, the anxiety can be really bad. And over time, you kind of learn different techniques to help with the anxiety. My therapist has helped me a lot. I have taken anxiety medication in the past to help me through scans. A lot of the anxiety comes with what is the news you're going to hear after your scan? Are you going to hear that you've progressed? But along with my therapist, I've learned that there's nothing you can do to change with the news, the news that you're getting.
Right. Well, anxiety is really your body trying to protect you. It was a great thing when we were, in the forest and we saw a tiger and we needed to, our body needed to make a decision before our brain could think about it. It's fight or flight. But when you're exposed to it chronically, and it will physically wear you down. It will physically compromise your immune system. You'll be exposed. You'll be far more likely to get infections and sick. And this is exactly what you don't need when you have cancer. When you have cancer, you need your immune system to be as good as it can. Anxiety is destroying your physical health. And along with that, it's destroying your mental health because you're ruining today. So we're going to have some really great tips today to help you with that.
This is tip number 1. And like what Sherry said about the breathing exercises, and this can be while you're getting the scan or, the days or week leading up to it. And one thing that I learned from Dr. Huberman, and I will link him, if you've never listened to his podcast, he's really an amazing source, and he does talk a lot about mental health and anxiety. So I'll link that. But he talks about Wim Hof breathing. Wim Hof he's a Dutch athlete, extreme athlete, and he talks a lot about mental health. And I'm going to put a graphic up so that you all can learn how to do that. I don't have to go into that for you, but as I'm talking, it's really taking deep breaths in and exhaling all of the carbon dioxide out of your lungs and repeating that basically over and over again until you've calmed your nervous system. So that is definitely our first tip, is like what Sherry talked about, is the breathing and Wim Hof breathing. I'll link all that so that you can get to that. All right, Sherry. Now, what about yoga. I know you and I talked briefly in another video about yoga. So tell me, about that. Yoga, meditation, what you do there physically. So that'll be tip 2 is mindful exercise.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I've learned during yoga is that mindful meditation. In fact, I don't know if you remember the yoga studio we went to here where we did that. It was kind of like that stress relief yoga class we did that just focused a lot on, remember, on the mindful meditation. And it was a very like stress release.
I do remember that. And it was not so much for exercise. It was literally for mind.
Yes.
Mind exercise, a more mind exercise than anything.
And you just left feeling so peaceful. I mean, just the stress relief, it was amazing. So, I mean, I took a lot of those things, and like when I go into a scan or when I feel anxious, I can take a lot of those things that I've learned in yoga, and I can just really calm myself and bring myself into the moment and just use those things that I've learned in yoga, whether it's the breathing or the meditation, and just focus. Really, yoga, a lot of times you are focusing on your breathing. I mean, that class we went to in that studio, she had us focusing on our breath, whether we were focusing on breathing through our nose or filling it in our belly. You're not thinking about anything else at that moment. You're literally thinking about your breathing.
And that's the important thing is when you're feeling anxiety, a lot of times you're ruminating in your brain, and you have to get out of that. You have to get out of your own brain. This is a way that yoga does that. Yoga is one of the few things that has been proven by science to not only help cancer survivors feel better, but to actually live longer. They live longer and they live better. And that is backed up by science. And that's why you will see hospitals offering yoga or suggesting yoga. Tip number 3 is aerobic exercise. So during periods of anxiety, you have adrenaline building up. If you feel well enough, or even if you don't feel very well, sometimes aerobic exercise. So that does not mean getting on a treadmill and running. You don't have to do that. If you're walking, just walking, especially out in nature, you can swim, you can go play tennis, you can play a sport. The important thing is that you're moving and you're burning off that adrenaline. So I'll have a graphic up that shows the benefits of aerobic exercise. If you don't feel well, just the little bits that you can do. And you know what? Research shows that even 10 minutes at a time is all you need. The other thing about aerobic exercise is that it's glucose disposal. So, and that's always good for people with cancer, is to have a very good system that takes care of glucose disposal. So when you contract your muscles, whether you're walking, swimming, it's disposing the glucose that's in your system. Okay, so that's a way to keep metabolically healthy.
About the 10 minutes though with aerobic exercise, there's times where I've been so tired and I said, okay, I'm just going to do 10 minutes of exercising because that's all I thought I could do. And it's funny, once I've done 10 minutes, I'm like, well, you know what? Maybe I can do another 10 minutes. And once I get started, it's just kind of amazing. And I mean, I've had terrible days where I thought I could do nothing, but I'm like, I'm just going to do 10 minutes. But 10 minutes has turned into 30 minutes before.
Yes,
it's just absolutely. That getting started sometimes.
Absolutely, absolutely true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, like I said, what about treating yourself though? After you've done your aerobic exercise, what do you do to treat yourself, or what would you suggest?
Oh yeah. Very important. I know for myself, like I do love like massages. I like to go shopping.
Shopping, therapy.
Even if I'm not buying something, I just like to go even just to the mall and walk around. I just feel like it gives you those endorphins of just like feeling good. You're out walking, you're with other people. I like to get my nails done.
You and I have done art classes.
Yes.
And we have been abject failures at it, okay? Like abject failures. But you know what? It gets your mind out and about. And, you know, like a lot of people, they like to grab a glass of wine or something. Don't grab a glass of wine. Go to a wine tasting where your mind is off of it, where you're out with people and you're learning something. That's the important thing about treating yourself, is that you're out,
Right.
your mind is off.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Right. Okay. Sometimes it can be as simple as getting some listening to uplifting music. If that's your treat, get yourself a great set of headphones where you can listen to the music that you love while you exercise. So learn to treat yourself. Okay. So speaking of treating yourself, our tip number 5, it comes from something that's been used for thousands of years. And that is aromatherapy and essential oils. And these are extracts from plants that have proven effects of calming or sometimes energizing you. So you can use a diffuser, or you can put them on your wrist or the back of your neck. There's bracelets they make now where you can put the, I think you roll that in and then you can just have the scent with you all day. So Sherry, weren't you saying, didn't they use essential oils or aromatherapy in the yoga class we took?
Yeah, that yoga studio we went to, she would play just such relaxing music. She would have this wonderful scent of essential oils going, and you would just leave feeling so amazing, and just the stress was just like melted away. And then you would just, it's like that scent would be lingering. It was amazing.
The one thing I would say is make sure you're getting quality essential oils. Okay, please make sure. They can be just like any oil that you get. They can be overly diluted, or they might be filled with oils that aren't so good. So make sure that you're buying a really high quality oil. And that brings us to tip number 6, and that would be talking to a therapist. And I know Sherry's talked about that a lot, but I don't think that we can emphasize talking to a therapist or even like a trusted friend, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there were so many things that I was anxious about. I have a son that's got special needs, and I mean, so many things that didn't happen that I was worried was going to happen. And she would walk me through these different scenarios, and like worst case scenarios. And, you know, these things never happened, but she helped me plan for things and look at things in a different way. So it's just very helpful to have a therapist that you can talk to. Now, there are times where you can talk to your family or friends, but over time, I feel like that's just a heavy burden for them to carry. You know, so I do feel like it's best to have that therapist where your family, you know, it just becomes a lot. It becomes a lot for them to carry the burden.
Well, that brings up another subject, and this will probably be a good video for another time. But that would be sometimes friends and family can give you toxic positivity that doesn't very helpful. They mean well, but we'll probably do another subject on that. So if you're finding that you're talking to friends or family and you feel like it's making you feel worse because of some of the things they say might make them uncomfortable, then definitely a therapist. The other thing that you can do is, if you're really feeling panicky, you can do what are called grounding techniques. And I actually learned this when I was in the 7th grade with a French teacher we had. We had a really unruly class. And I think that she would have us do these grounding techniques for herself because she hated us so bad. But anyway, really, essentially what it is learning techniques where she would have us lay on the ground and she would have us tense up muscles. So you would lay, you would relax in the dark, and you would like tense up your calf muscle and relax, breathe out. Then with your thighs, then with your buttocks, then with your stomach. And that's something that, again, it's sort of like aerobic exercise. It releases the adrenaline in your body and it will stop a panic attack. And the other thing you can do is a body scan. And this is a technique that helps you raise the awareness of your body and what's going on. So you focus on the feelings of good, bad, painful, pleasurable. But you will notice the tingling. You might notice warmth. In other words, you're laying down and you're just breathing for a minute and just doing a body scan. Do you know what I mean, Sherry?
Yeah, definitely. I've done that before.
Yeah, I have too. Like I said, I think my teacher was doing it so we would shut the hell up. Tip number 8 is one thing that Sherry already touched on, and that is taking, and I learned this from Dr. Phil. This is a Dr. Phil thing. Whether you love him or hate him, he does have some pretty good advice. And this one has helped me a lot. And that is to go ahead and think about your worst fear and take that to its worst logical conclusion, not some fantastical conclusion. Let's say that you have breast cancer. If you're suddenly feeling a horrible pain in your big toe, is that logical to assume that you're suddenly have toe cancer or something? No, that isn't. So it's not something fantastical. It's something that would be logical. So go ahead and take that to its worst logical conclusion. And then you will decide, how will I handle this? And I will promise myself that I will handle it and I will do whatever is next. And then you let it go. You stop it. Now you know, you're assured that I can handle it. I know what it can be. And now we're not going to think about that anymore. So, I mean, have you ever done something? You alluded to that. Have you ever done that in your own mind, Sherry?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, my therapist definitely helped me a lot, because it was like when you have cancer, and you know this because you've been through this with me, every single pain I had in the first couple of years, I thought I had progression. And I know a lot about it just talking with other cancer survivors. They go through that same thing where they're like, oh my gosh, I have this pain. And is this progression? But, as the years go on, you just know, okay, this is normal. People have aches and pains. But anyways, the therapist, those are the things she would talk to you about. Okay, so if let's say you do have progression, and this is progression, let's just go to the worst place possible. You have a plan. You know what to do. This is not something that you cannot handle. So
yes, and then the important thing of that though is then you let it go. You don't
let it go.
You know that you have a plan. You know what you can do. And I'm just going to tell this one little story because it's kind of funny actually. When Sherry, after she had been diagnosed, I guess it was maybe a year or so after she was diagnosed with two, she called me and she was literally in her bed crying, oh, my hair is brittle and I'm sweating and I'm just sure, I know it's the cancer. I progressed. And I said, well, didn't you just have scans like 2 weeks ago? Like 3 weeks ago? And then you were like, at that point, I think either stable or no evidence of disease. And I said to her, actually, Sherry, I think you're in menopause. I'm sorry to tell you, but you're not a spring chicken anymore. And this is what happens at 50 years old. So I think you need to assume that. And so
then I started crying for another reason.
You're crying because your hormones are a disaster. Your hair is brittle because your estrogen's gone. So that's the thing to understand, that especially if you're older, especially if you're someone who is older and you're dealing with cancer, understand that unfortunately our bodies break down and we go through menopause. And if you're a male, you'll see a big drop in your hormones too. And as you get old, your body just breaks down. That's what happened. And even when you're younger, I think I started breaking down at like 30. So I don't know. Sorry. That's just what it is. The next tip is something I learned from a pilot who teaches classes on people that are scared to fly. I'm not as scared to fly as I am claustrophobic. So when I fly, I look around and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm stuck here. I have a problem with my bladder where I feel like I have to pee every 20 minutes when I'm on an airplane, and I get nervous and I get sweaty. It's such a disaster when I fly. And Sherry kind of deals with that same thing. I have to have an aisle seat. So anyway, I kind of took his course, and he has a tip that works so well, and it's so stupid that I can't even believe it. But what you do is you get a pad of paper and a pencil. If you're right-handed, you put it in your left hand and you start journaling. You just are journaling with your wrong hand, and it will be a disaster. But sometimes I just write my name over and over and over again, and I forget that I have to pee. I forget that I'm in this metal tube, and it works amazingly well. My anxiety goes completely away. And there is a scientific reason for that. It's because when you're not using the dominant hand, a part of your brain goes on that will not allow you to feel those feelings. It takes like the parasympathetic nerve system. I think that's how you pronounce it. And it stops that completely. So you can't feel any anxiety. This is if you're really panicky. If you're in a situation where you're like, I can't breathe, I'm feeling so panicky, try it. Trust me, it works.
Good advice.
Try it sometime.
Yeah.
It works. Okay, that is all we have for today. There are many other things that you can do for anxiety. These are just some of the tips that her and I have both tried. We will absolutely do more videos on anxiety, because this is just scratching the surface. There's so much more you can do, but try some of these tips. Make sure and let us know down in the comments if you have any things that you like to do to help you with anxiety, or if you deal with anxiety. If you're someone out there that doesn't have any anxiety, let us know. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.